calorie counting. Every single weight loss method on this list, every pill, every app, every guru screaming at you on your feed, eventually funnels down to one boring equation: energy in versus energy out. That's it. That's the whole machine. Your body is not a mystical furnace that behaves differently depending on which diet book you bought. It's a chemistry set. Eat more energy than you burn, and the surplus gets stored as fat. Eat less than you burn, and your body pulls from its stored fat to cover the gap. This is called a calorie deficit, and it is the only mechanism through which fat loss actually happens. Every strategy on this list, keto, fasting, cardio, all of it, only works if it gets you into a deficit. None of them burn fat through some secret side door. Here's the part nobody wants to hear. A pound of fat is roughly 3,500 calories. Cut 500 calories a day below what your body burns, and you lose about a pound a week. Sounds simple on paper, and mechanically, it is. The hard part was never the math. The hard part is that your body fights back. Cut calories hard, and your body slows your metabolism down to protect itself. A bit like a thermostat, quietly turning itself down when you start rationing the heating. Cut too aggressively, and you're hungry, foggy, and miserable, which is exactly why almost nobody sticks to it long term. Should you use it? You already are, whether you know it or not. Every strategy below is just a different flavor of manufacturing the same deficit.
Intermittent fasting. This is the one that convinced half the internet that meal timing is some secret lever. Eat only within an 8-hour window, fast for the other 16, and apparently, your body flips into fat-burning mode. Let's actually look at the machinery. When you eat, your body releases insulin, the hormone that shuttles sugar out of your blood and into storage. While insulin is up, fat burning is basically paused, because insulin's whole job is to tell your body to store energy, not release it. Fast for long enough, and insulin drops low, which theoretically opens the gate for stored fat to get used as fuel. That part is real biology. Here's where the myth creeps in. People assume that gate opening means guaranteed fat loss, but the gate opening just means your body is capable of burning fat. It still needs an actual calorie deficit to draw down on it. Study after study comparing fasting windows against regular eating patterns at matched calories finds basically the same weight loss either way. The magic isn't the fast, it's that skipping breakfast and lunch makes it a lot harder to overeat by accident, which quietly creates the deficit for you. Should you try it? If a smaller eating window naturally stops you from snacking all day, it's a genuinely useful tool. If you just cram the same calories into fewer hours, the clock changes nothing. Low-carb and keto. Cut carbs hard enough, usually under 50 grams a day, and your body runs out of its preferred fuel, glucose. With no incoming carbs and dwindling glucose stores, your liver starts converting fat into molecules called ketones, an alternate fuel source your brain and muscles can run on when sugar isn't available. This is called ketosis, and it's a real, measurable metabolic state, not a marketing term. The appeal is obvious. Early weight loss on keto is dramatic, often several pounds in the first week. But here's the part the diet books leave out. Most of that early drop isn't fat. Carbohydrate gets stored in your muscles bound to water. Roughly 3 grams of water for every gram of stored carb. Deplete the carbs and you dump the water right along with it. That first week of keto is mostly your body wringing itself out like a sponge, not your fat cells emptying. Real fat loss on keto still comes from the same place it always does, eating less than you burn, which keto tends to make easier because protein and fat are extremely filling, and cutting an entire food category naturally slashes your options. Should you try it? It works well if restriction helps you eat less without trying. It's not some metabolic cheat code that burns fat faster than any other deficit. High-protein dieting. Of every single macronutrient trick out there, this one has the strongest science behind it, and it works through 2 completely different doors at once. First, protein is expensive for your body to digest. Roughly 20 to 30% of the calories in protein get burned just breaking it down. compared to around 5 to 10% for carbs and fat. Eat 100 calories of chicken and your body effectively only banks 70 to 80 of it. That's called the thermic effect of food, and protein dominates it. Second, and more important day to day, protein is brutally good at making you feel full. It slows digestion and triggers hormones that tell your brain the tank is topped off, which means a high protein plate leaves you far less likely to go raiding the pantry 2 hours later. There's a third benefit that isn't about weight loss directly, but matters just as much. When you're in a calorie deficit, your body doesn't only burn fat. It'll happily chew through muscle too if you let it. Enough protein, especially combined with resistance training, tells your body to protect that muscle and pull the deficit from fat stores instead. Around 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight is the range that shows up again and again in the research. Should you do it? Yes, almost unconditionally. Of every lever on this list, this is the one with the least downside and the most upside. Cardio, running, cycling, the elliptical. The assumption is simple. Burn calories through movement, widen the gap between energy in and energy out, lose weight. And mechanically, that's true. Cardio genuinely burns calories in the moment. But here's the number that deflates most people's expectations. A 30-minute run might torch 300 calories. A single large muffin can undo that in about 90 seconds of chewing. Cardio is a shockingly inefficient way to create a deficit compared to just eating a bit less, because it's incredibly easy to out-eat any workout. There's also a sneaky trap called compensatory eating, where burning 300 calories on a run makes people feel like they've earned 400 calories back at dinner, which quietly cancels the entire session and sometimes tips it negative. That doesn't mean cardio is pointless. It's genuinely one of the best tools for heart health, and it does add a real, if modest, contribution to your daily burn. It also seems to matter more for keeping weight off long term than for losing it in the first place, likely because it builds the kind of daily activity habits that stick. Should you do it? Do it for your heart and your long-term maintenance. Don't expect it to outrun a bad diet, because it mathematically can't. Strength training. This one doesn't burn many calories during the session itself, usually less than cardio for the same 30 minutes, and yet it might be the single most underrated weight loss tool on this entire list. The reason has nothing to do with the workout and everything to do with what happens after. Muscle tissue is metabolically expensive to maintain. Simply having more of it raises the number of calories your body burns at complete rest, just keeping the lights on, no exercise involved. Build muscle and your daily baseline burn creeps up permanently, not just for the hour you were in the gym. Compare that to pure calorie restriction without any training, where a chunk of what you lose is muscle, not fat, which actually drags your metabolic baseline down and makes the weight easier to regain later. This is the mechanism behind why so many people who lose weight through diet alone end up heavier a year later than people who paired the same diet with lifting. The muscle you kept is quietly burning calories for you around the clock. Should you do it? If you only pick one form of exercise for weight loss, this outperforms cardio for protecting the number on the scale over the long run. GLP-1 medications, Ozempic, Wegovy, and the rest of this drug class exploded into the mainstream for a reason. They work, and the mechanism is genuinely elegant. GLP-1 is a hormone your gut naturally releases after eating, and its job is to tell your brain the meal is over. These medications are lab-made copies of that hormone that stick around in your system far longer than the natural version, which does two things at once. It slows down how fast food leaves your stomach, so you feel full longer on less food, and it acts directly on the appetite centers in your brain, quieting the background hunger signal that normally has people thinking about their next meal an hour after the last one. Essentially, it makes the calorie deficit feel less like willpower and more like the food genuinely stopped being interesting. That's a real physiological effect, not a placebo. The trade-offs are real too. Nausea is common, especially early on. Muscle loss is a genuine risk if protein and strength training aren't prioritized alongside it, and the weight tends to return if the medication stops, because the underlying hunger signal comes back with it. Should you use it? That's a conversation with a doctor, not a YouTube video, but understanding the mechanism at least explains why it works as well as it does. Sleep and stress. This one doesn't get a single headline, yet it quietly sabotages almost every other strategy on this list. Skimp on sleep and two hunger hormones swing hard against you. Ghrelin, the hormone that screams, "Feed me," rises, while leptin, the hormone that whispers, "You're full," drops. Run on 5 hours of sleep, and your body is biochemically primed to want more food and to feel less satisfied by what you eat, completely independent of what's actually on your plate. Chronic stress pulls the same lever through a different door. Elevated cortisol doesn't just make sticking to a plan harder, it specifically encourages your body to store fat around the midsection and drives cravings for quick, dense energy because your body genuinely believes it's under threat and needs fast fuel on standby. This is why someone can nail their calories perfectly on paper and still struggle because the deficit they built during the day gets quietly clawed back by hormones working against them at night. Should you fix it? Absolutely, and it costs nothing. Prioritizing sleep and managing stress isn't a nice to have on top of a diet. It's the hormonal environment that decides whether the diet has a fair shot at working in the first place. The real takeaway: strip away the branding, and every single one of these strategies is just a different door into the same room. A calorie deficit. Fasting doesn't burn fat by the clock. It just tends to shrink your eating window. Keto doesn't have a secret fat-burning switch. It just makes cutting calories easier for certain people. Cardio helps, but it's a leaky bucket compared to eating a little less. The only two things on this list that change the game beyond the basic math are protein and muscle, because they're the rare tools that make the deficit itself more sustainable and protect what you actually want to keep while the fat comes off. Pick the version of eat less than you burn that you can actually live with for months, not days, and you've already beaten most of what the industry is selling you.